And now Deborah Kobylt Live and Little Italy Podcast.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us today on our Little Italy podcast and Deborah Kobylt Live. And joining me is Vanessa Racci from New York City, Italian-American jazz singer extraordinaire. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited.
I am too. First of all, your singing is extraordinary, and yeah, I'm going to ask you to sing something for me later on. So
I'm
going to let you know now that I'm going to put you on the spot so you can think of what to do.
Okay.
But tell us a little about you, because I know that you got an album coming out. You're going to be performing. So let's start with present day. Tell us about what you do and where you do it.
Yeah, so I'm an Italian-American jazz singer, as you said, and I'm based in New York City. And I am launching my second album on my very first jazz label, Zoho, and it's called Jazzy Italian, which is a celebration of Italian-American composer contributions to jazz in America, because a lot of people don't know how many songs Italian-Americans contributed to our great American songbook.
Yeah, and if we don't keep this stuff alive, it's going to start to go away. So I'm glad that you're making sure that Italian jazz music and music from the past is, present. Let's talk a little bit about you as a little kid. I always love to start there because you were very, very influenced, right, by your grandpa. So let's go way back when you were just a little kid, like 4 years old.
Oh, yeah. So I grew up living in Thornwood, New York, which is a small town in Westchester that has a very dense Italian-American population. And like many Italian-Americans in the area, my grandparents lived with me. When I was 4, my grandmother died, unfortunately, but my grandfather stayed around until he was 102. So I had a lot of my life with him, which is great. And he lived in the basement apartment. And we just became really close because he was our built-in babysitter. He would make us frittatas in the basement that we would bring to Italian class in school. He would pick us up from school, take us to the racetrack, and I just became close and therefore learned so much about the music of his generation and his stories, and it was just really invaluable to have that relationship.
Oh gosh, I remember those stories from my grandmas. So beautiful, and they do stay with us forever. Tell us about Grandpa's taste in music and what he loved playing around the house.
So he would play everything in what I call the Italian-American songbook. So he had Dean Martin, Lou Monte, Louis Prima, Connie Francis. He would blast her, literally would drive up to the house, blasting it louder than the kids play the rap music down the street.
I imagine. Yeah. Were you like dancing around the house to that? I mean, was that like pretty much what you grew up with, and that was your whole influence, right?
Yes, absolutely. And he wasn't much of a singer, but he did, sing in his own way. And I learned a lot of old music from him. Like he would sing, you made me love you, I didn't want to do it. And I wouldn't know that song, growing up in the 80s, like as being born in the 80s, I wouldn't know that song. And I would look up songs from remembering that he sang them, and they were from like 1913, 1917, 1920. And I just started researching this music, and I think that's what inspired me to be a jazz singer, because much of it is jazz.
Yeah, and when did you actually start performing? I know that you were awarded a pretty prestigious award when you were in school. You were acting. Tell us about those early years.
Sure. So for my family, I started performing, at the age of 4. And then I started doing professional theater at the age of 12. I did a local theater called Westchester Broadway Dinner Theater, and it's where all the Broadway performers would perform when they weren't on Broadway. So I had that wonderful experience. And then I learned, so I did mostly musical theater in my tweens and teens. And then I immersed myself in the Great American Songbook and built a repertoire of hundreds of jazz standards. And I would just perform them with a trio in the tri-state area. And then I decided to commit to jazz, but I wanted to, leave my mark on it and do something that was unique to me. And when my grandfather passed away, I was
Mm.
inspired to reinvent the songs that he taught me, the Italian classics, but with new, fresh jazz arrangements. I think it was my way of keeping his memory alive and keeping his spirit alive.
Mm. What was it? Because I know that you've performed at festivals, you've done all sorts of stuff, but you also got, what was the big award that you
Oh, the
had when you
Helen
were,
Hayes
yeah.
Award. Yes, I won that for my role as Christine in Phantom when I was
Mm.
18. Yes.
Wow.
And that was
Um,
the time when, my parents asked me, and you're probably going to get to this, but they asked me, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I'm like, well, I want to be a singer. Of course, mom and dad, like that's what I'm great at. And they said, oh, no, 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 that's not a real job. That's just a hobby. And I went to school for business.
that I love because I know so many folks where this has happened, especially people who are performers. It's very rare for someone to say, you want to go to business school? Forget it. Go be an actor. That just never seems to happen, right? It
Right.
always it always happens the other way where someone wants to be a performer and they're so no, no, no. So okay, here you are, you're 18. You win the Helen Hayes Award. Big honor. And mom and dad say, you got to kind of really think about getting a real career, right? What did that do to you
I was
psychologically?
shocked. I was like,
Mm. Oh,
what? What do you mean it's not a real career? Well, now what do I do?
yeah. So what
And
did you do?
well, my mom had always I guess looked up to the people that worked at PepsiCo in Westchester, and she's like, well, why don't you go into marketing? And she also did some marketing work at General Foods, I think, earlier in her career. And she's like, that seems to be like a stable, good career. People seem to make good money doing that. You're really creative and you're smart. You can do anything. And so I
Right,
said, okay, and so I'm the type of person that if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it well. So
right.
I decided to do it, even though it wasn't some like a passion of mine. And I went to school for it. I wound up working at a top ad agency in Manhattan for 4 years, McCann Erickson. Then I wound up getting a job at PepsiCo, worked my way up to marketing executive after 11 years there. But I did well and I made good money, but it wasn't ever a passion of mine. I wasn't ever saying, I really want to be a marketer, when I grow up. So
Yeah. I mean, did you sort of feel like your soul was empty as you went to work every day, thinking, gosh, I really would rather be singing?
I felt like I was acting all the time. Like I was trying
Oh,
to be what a businesswoman should be because I felt like
yeah.
I wasn't really genuinely being myself. And I don't think I realized that for a while, that, oh, wow, I have, it takes so much emotional energy out of me every day because I'm acting. I didn't realize
Yeah.
that.
I actually know what that's like. I sort of had a similar situation, the whole like, you ought to be a bookkeeper kind of a thing. And I'm like, but I want to be a bookkeeper. So something similar. And then eventually I just had to make a call and say, ain't going to happen. And I switched over and I studied classics. And, the rest for me is history. So here you are, you're at PepsiCo, you're acting, but doing a great job acting, I may say, very successful.
Yeah.
And you walk into a bar, and what happens then? I think
What
you
does
met,
that mean?
didn't you
Oh,
meet your
right,
husband?
right. That's right. That's right. That's right. Well, I actually met him before PepsiCo, but I was
Oh,
working at McCann Erickson, and my ex had cheated on me. We were together for 2 years, and the way I found out was really crazy. A really good
man.
friend of mine, I was having dinner with like a good friend of mine in the
Yeah.
city, and I said, she's like, what's going on with you? And I said, well, I'm dating this great guy and I think we're in love. And, I think he's the one. And I showed her a picture of him. And she
Oh,
said, oh, this guy is seeing my roommate. And I was like, no, it can't be the same guy. It
oh my
can't
God.
be. And it
Oh
was.
my God. Did you set something up to trap him? Because I would have done
I
that
did.
instead of,
I
you
did.
did. Oh my God. What did you do? Oh, girl,
I
dish. Tell me what
I
happened.
called
Oh my
her
God.
roommate and I said I verified because of course I wanted to verify that it was true
Of
first.
course.
Like it's the same guy. So I called her roommate.
Oh,
She didn't know he was dating me. And then we said, okay, we're gonna she sent me some evidence like from her phone so that I could meet him and be like, bam, so he couldn't deny it.
Oh
And
man.
yeah, and then he claimed he never officially cheated on me. He just cuddled. I'm like, I don't care. You're going on dates with other women, that's cheating. I don't care what you do.
Out. Yeah.
Out. So anyway, long story short,
Oh,
well, long story long, but I was out with my girlfriends because I wanted to be cheered up after being cheated on, and I was having a couple of drinks, and I was like, you know what, liquid courage, right? And I was like, you know what, waiting for guys to approach me doesn't work because usually I wind up with the douchebags. So I'm gonna go. Like the cocky ones are usually the ones that approach, and they're more likely to be douchebags. Anyway, so I'm like,
great. Yeah.
let me go and approach who I want to approach. I'm gonna go and talk to the first hot guy I see. And I turned around and I didn't know it at the time, my to-be husband, and I was like, hey, you've got a nice smile. What's your name? And he was like,
Oh,
excuse me?
wow. You were bold there, Vanessa. Oh, wow. Okay. Come on, keep going. I like this.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. And he was with his friend Roberto, and was mid drink, and he like kind of choked because he was like, "Excuse me," because he couldn't believe that I was coming to talk to him. From his perspective, he said he saw me, and I'm a very wild dancer, and he said, "Oh, this girl looks interesting. She's cute," and he was trying to figure out the best way to approach. And see,
Ah,
I knew I might scare him because he was a shyer guy, and I'm a very like outgoing, loud person, and so I don't know if he actually would have approached me. He said he was going to, but I don't
wow.
know.
Why is it that guys always have a different version? Because my husband works in radio, right? And we met when we were like really young, working at this tiny little station in the middle of Atlantic City, New Jersey. Long story. I'll make it short. And he saw me through a window, and he claims I blew a kiss at him. I'm like, I did not. So it's like this, you know what I mean? I'm like, I would never do such a thing. And it's like the stories always are different, right? But nonetheless, we've been
So
married
funny.
like a hundred years later. Here we are. So I love that. So okay, so you guys met there again. You reacquainted, and he heard you sing, right? Because I'm sort of leading
Yes.
into,
Yeah.
here we are at PepsiCo, and he met
Yeah.
you, and he heard you sing. Maybe not that
Yeah.
night, but he heard you sing, right?
Right. So yeah, we went to a karaoke bar because we talked about hobbies on our first and second dates, and he's like, "What do you like to do?" I'm like, "Oh, I like to sing." And he's like, "Oh, me too. I sing in the shower. I sing around the campfire." And I'm like, "Well, it's a little different."
That is really funny. Oh my God, maybe he was inviting you into the shower. I don't know. I mean, I'm now
I
look
know.
where I'm going. My mind is in the wrong place. But okay. So
And
go
then
ahead.
so then we went to karaoke one night, and I think I was singing Vision of Love by Mariah Carey, and I came up and I was like, treated me kind, sweet destiny. And he was like, "Oh my God, you're a real singer." And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "That's not just a hobby." He's like, "You need to do this." And I'm like,
Ooh.
"Oh, well, I'm too old, and it's not a real job." He's like, "No, no, no, you need to do this." And I'm saying I'm too old, and meanwhile I'm like 23, but whatever. And and then he's like, your goal next year is to do 10 gigs. And so that
Oh.
year I did 20, and
Oh.
then every year I kept doing more and more while ascending the ladder in corporate America at PepsiCo. And it
Wow. Did they?
got
Whoa. Wait. Did they know this at PepsiCo that like by day you're like this amazing marketer, and by night there's Vanessa performing? Did they know this?
some people. I was selective as to like who I told because
Yeah.
some people's perspective was, oh, you're not really committed to your career in marketing if you also sing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Can you sing that a little bit again, please? Because you only gave me like one bar or whatever it's called. Could you just like sing a little
oh,
again of that
let me
Mariah
see.
Carey? Let me see.
Treating me kind, sweet destiny carried me through desperation to the one that was waiting for me. It took so long, still I believed somehow the one that I needed would find me eventually. I haven't sung that in like 10 years.
I told you I'd be putting you on the spot. What can I say,
Yeah.
Vanessa? I'm known for this. But you know what's amazing? I don't know. Were you trained, or this was just you belting this out even back then?
Well, I had a natural inclination and a natural talent since the age of 4, but of
Yeah.
course, my parents put me into, voice lessons and musical theater and training. So yes, I did get classical training at a young age.
Yeah, but it was sort of like not happening for a few years, right? So it was
Yeah,
so
yeah,
your voice was silenced until that
yeah.
night, right? Okay, okay. So here you are doing karaoke. You did all of those gigs. He said do 10, you did 20. So let's keep going. Like how did this career then develop and what happened with PepsiCo? Don't tell me you're still there because I think no, right?
No, I'm not. I'm not. I do consult part time, but I don't. But I'm not there full time. So it got to the point where I was gigging, like I did 30 gigs a year, like 30 to 40. I was traveling every other weekend, going to a different event around the country. It got to be hard on my marriage to do both. And, also
Oh,
when you move up the ladder, I started managing people. So it wasn't just my work I had to worry about. It was also like the careers of 5 other people. And it got to a point where I was like getting bronchitis 4 times a year because I was running myself down because I worked there from like 9 to 8. It's not a 9 to 5 job. It's like a 9 to 8 job. And then I would come home and eat dinner, vocalize, work out, play piano, promote for shows, and I didn't stop until like midnight. So there was no downtime. So I said, you know what? It wasn't until the pandemic happened that it kind of shocked me into reality. Like, hey, you can't. This is not sustainable. You can't do this for the rest of your life. And I just felt like I wasn't living, that I was just surviving every day, just like getting through it. So
right.
I had a long talk with my husband about it, and he was also saying, I need more of your time as well. Like, I feel like I don't see you, and we live in the same house. So we said, hey, can we manage our expenses if I quit my job? And he's like,
Right.
yes. And he was very encouraging. He's like, do it. I
Wow.
don't worry. I can handle the expenses until you figure things out. And I did.
Wow. Okay, how many
Yeah.
years ago was that?
It was only last year.
What?
It
It
was
was only
only
last
last
year.
year.
Well,
Yes.
wait a minute. When did you cut your first album?
In 2017. I did it while at PepsiCo and I toured while at PepsiCo.
Wow.
It was a lot. Yeah, it was a lot.
Oh, Vanessa, no wonder. That's incredible. And how were you received by the family when you said, "Guess what? I'm not working there anymore." Even though I know that it was very, it was a positive experience working there for you as well. They were good to
Yes.
you. You were very professional with them. So this was, you ended on phenomenal terms with them. But
Yes.
what did they say? And especially, what did mom and dad and the family say when you said, "Not gonna be doing it anymore. I'm hitting the road. I'm singing."
They were still upset.
Oh,
I was
what?
like, are you kidding me? I was like, I've proven I'm successful in both of my careers, that I'm tenacious, that I'm motivated, I know what I'm doing, I'm a smart person. You're still worried about me?
Wow. And
I couldn't
what did
believe it.
that do to your psyche? Seriously, because I'm trying to sort of talk to other people, right, in this
Yeah.
situation who may never break out of what they're doing to do what they're born to do. What would you
Yeah.
say to them?
I guess I would these people that will never break out. Well, I would say you have one life to live.
Yeah.
Do you want to look back and say, I spent it devoted to corporate America? Is that really what you want, like on your headstone? you know, is
Yeah.
that really living if you're not exploring all avenues and seizing everything that life has to offer for you?
Yeah.
That's what I would ask.
Yeah. And now how do you feel? That sort of, I'll call it a burden, but that the burden has been lifted off of you to be a big success in corporate America, which you were. How does it feel that now you can focus solely on what you were born to do?
Amazing. I should have done it sooner,
Yeah.
but I didn't have the courage sooner.
Yeah.
So everything happens at the right time.
It does.
But what is amazing is the marketing experience that I got at Pepsi, writing positioning statements, building brand strategies and images for products. I just applied to myself, and
Right.
it's amazing at what I can do for me,
Hmm.
as my at me as the product. And because
Yeah.
I think that's really my competitive edge, because a lot of artists have the left brain but not the right brain, or I can't remember if they're reversed, but they're creative, but they can't do the
Yeah.
business side. And I do both of it really well. And so that gives me kind of an edge, I think, over others.
And let me tell you, that's really hard. I mean,
Yeah.
even for reporters and journalists, and of course, we know writers and performers, it's you almost don't want to go out there and promote yourself. You're like, oh, no,
Yeah.
no, that's okay. Let somebody else do it.
Right.
It's a tough thing to do. So,
Yeah.
all right. Kudos to mom and dad for making sure you ended up in marketing, because now
Yeah.
look where you are, right? You decided to follow your own path. You can market yourself darn well. And let's talk about some of the people you've performed with, some of the
Yeah.
places where you've performed that you'd like to share with us.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've had an incredible journey, and I hoped it'll get more incredible in the years to come, because I just got a booking agent as well and a label,
Oh,
so it's up and up from here. But everything to date, I've done myself. So I'm happy to hand something off to a
wow.
booking agent. But anyway,
Yeah.
so I've had the pleasure of performing in New Orleans at their Italian festival, and that was so exciting for me because New Orleans is the birthplace of jazz, and
Yeah.
that's actually where Nick LaRocca, who was a Sicilian American, recorded the very first jazz song in history. Because a lot of people
Hmm.
don't know that connection between the oppressed Black population in New Orleans at the time and the oppressed Italian American population in New Orleans. They lived and they worked in the same neighborhoods and made great music together, which is why Italians are so steeped in jazz. But anyway, so I loved New Orleans. That was great. Um, Performing at the National Italian American Foundation Gala in Washington, D.C. I met Dina Martin there, who's Dean Martin's daughter. I met Lena
Wow.
Prima in New Orleans, Louis Prima's
Oh,
daughter.
oh, that's a big one. Yeah.
Yeah, she's amazing. Really
Yeah.
cool, down to earth lady. She's been helpful in my career too. She's interviewed me on her podcast and then give me tips and advice, which is amazing because not every entertainer, especially female, does that for each other. So that's great.
Yeah.
I performed in San Jose, California at the San Jose Little Italy Festival. I performed for Mariana Gatto virtually for the Italian American Museum of LA because I did it in the pandemic when no one was traveling, but I did a virtual performance. San Gennaro, New York City is a big one.
Oh, yeah.
Birdland Jazz Club. I'm also debuting my album there October 23rd, my new album. But I've been there many times. Swing 46, New York City, which is one of my favorite jazz clubs. Um, Green Room 42, Chelsea Table and Stage. Where else have I been? Jazz Forum in Tarrytown. I've been all over. So
Wow.
those are some
And
of the highlights.
tell us the inspiration now for this latest album that you're going to be performing. I want to hear more about that and how people can
Yeah,
pick it up too.
sure. So my first album was, taking Italian American classics, reinventing them with jazz arrangements.
Hmm.
So I was performing that album in New Orleans, and it was there
Right.
that I was inspired to put this second album together because I learned the rich history that Italian Americans have with jazz. And so when I
Right.
found out that the very first jazz recording in history was by Nick LaRocca, a Sicilian American, I said, oh, that's interesting. Let me see what other Italian Americans contributed to jazz. Then I learned about Leon Ropolo, who formed one of the most popular jazz bands in the 1920s with New Orleans and Chicago musicians. I learned about Guy Lombardo, more about Louis Prima, Harry Warren. I didn't realize he was Italian American. He wrote At Last, September in the Rain, Chattanooga Choo Choo. He has a repertoire
Oh.
of like 800 standards that he wrote. So I think
Oh,
that'll be my
wow.
next album, an ode to Harry Warren. Um,
Oh,
and
wow.
he was,
I didn't know that either. I didn't realize that he was Italian, that he wrote all those. Wow.
yeah, he
Because I
was born,
remember this. I remember this too from growing up. My mom loved all this, right? So she'd be playing it
yeah,
around the house, like the Chattanooga. Oh my gosh, I can't say choo choo and all that stuff. I do
yeah,
remember
yeah.
that. That's
And
cool.
he
Yeah.
was born Salvatore Antonio Guaragna in Brooklyn, New York, but they changed his name
Hmm.
to Harry Warren because at the time
Oh,
it wasn't cool to
right.
be Italian.
Right.
And then Henry Mancini, who wrote lots of jazz compositions for film, like The Pink Panther, and then Moon River, Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Oh,
Who
wow.
else? And then all the way through to Chick Corea. A lot of people don't know he was Italian American and how much he contributed to the jazz genre in the 70s. John Pizzarelli, who is really influential in jazz in the 80s and 90s. So I cover all of the composers.
This is almost like a rebirth for you, right? It's like you're just like bursting out. And this is very exciting for me to see, and I'm sure for our entire audience. What's on your bucket list? Where would you love to perform, and who would you like to perform with if you could?
Oh my gosh. Lady Gaga. She's like my Italian American idol, of course. Like if that would be a bucket list. Tony Bennett, unfortunately, before he goes, but I know he's got Alzheimer's now. Who else is like amazing on my bucket list? Let's see. Well, this is not related to Italian American culture, but like Alicia Keys is one of my faves. Although actually she is half Italian, Alicia Keys.
Yes.
I don't know if you know that.
Yeah, her mom, right? Half Italian?
Yes.
Yeah.
Celine Dion is one of my idols. And you know, the things I want to do are I have so many more albums in my, you know, my head and my heart that I need to get out there. There's so many other ideas that I want. So I think I have like 4 more albums in me at least. And then I really want to do a documentary, like something on PBS maybe, that's devoted to telling the story of Italian Americans in jazz. So that can kind of go along with the music, where I can interview maybe, you know, in people who are still in the families of those key composers that contributed to jazz. Wow,
you got a lot on your mind, on your mind. And I think it's because it's been bottled up all this time. And now, like I said, it's like a rebirth for you. And this is very exciting for us to watch. It really, really is. Anything you want to tell our audience in terms of how they can find you, how they can purchase your work and whatnot? Go ahead.
Absolutely. So you can find me, you can go to my website to find out everything about me, vanessaracci.com, VANESSARACCI.com. Or you can follow me at Vanessa Racci on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, at any other social media platform. And if you want to find my music, you can buy the physical CDs on Amazon Music, or you can go to Spotify, iTunes, Pandora, wherever there's music, you can find me. What else? Oh, and if you want to get tickets to if you're in the New York tri-state area, tickets to the album release party at Birdland Jazz Club, New York City. That's on October 23rd, and the album release is October 21st. So you can get it wherever music is distributed.
Yeah, we're going to replay this interview throughout October because, you know, it's Italian American Heritage Month. So that's why I wanted to make sure that we got you in for September so that we could talk about where you're going to be performing and people can find you in October. So, gosh, I'm just thrilled that you joined us. But before I let you go, is there a little bit of a classic maybe you could sing for me, or something that's, you know, what I love the classics, the ones that my mom would play or your grandpa would play. I love it.
One of my favorites is Na Voce na Chitarra. Connie Francis would sing it. It means a voice, a guitar, and a bit of moon. And it's like a classic Neapolitan song from like the 1800s that is still popular. So I'll sing a little bit of that in Italiano. Na voce na chitarra un po' che luna e che chiunque fa una serenata per sospiro d'amore chiana chiana parole dolci per innamorata te voglio bene tanto tanto bene lontano e ti non posso chiudere.
Vanessa Racci, it was absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And what a perfect way to end our conversation. Really. Just lovely. Absolutely stunning. Thank you so much for joining us today. I think you're delightful. You're beautiful, super talented, and super smart. I really do. I hope mom and dad and the family go to, you know, hear you perform in New York. Okay, that's great. So, you know, they can invite all the relatives and, you know, look at Vanessa. So, you know, they'll sort of, you know, get it in their heads that you're doing the right thing. So
Absolutely.
I'm really, really, I'm very happy for you. So thanks for joining us today on Deborah Kobylt Live and our Little Italy podcasts. And you can find our shows, same thing, anywhere, any audio and video platform. You just look us up. We're on YouTube, we're on iHeartMedia, we're on everything. So look up both of our podcasts and Vanessa Racci, and we're just honored to have you on. So thank you very much for joining us, and thank you to our audience for joining us, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.